I didn't know what panic really felt like until I came home and saw a bulldozer tearing through the back half of my ranch. Not just my land, my sanctuary. Cattle were scattering, the soil was ripped open like a wound, and a giant yellow crane stood like a monster out of a nightmare. Men in neon vests barked orders while a massive concrete structure was already half-built where my hayfield used to be. I slammed my truck door so hard the rearview mirror shook. "Hey!" I shouted, storming toward the fence line. "What the hell is this?" One of the workers barely looked at me. "You'll have to take it up with the HOA, sir. We're just following the plans." I blinked. "HOA? I'm not in an HOA." He shrugged, pointed at a clipboard, and turned away like I was just noise in the wind. I stared at the mess, this monstrous parking garage rising like a scar across my land, and I felt something inside me split in two. My chest tightened. My hands shook. This was no mistake. This was a declaration of war. But the worst part? I knew exactly who was behind it. Flashback to 6 months earlier. I just moved back to my hometown in Texas after Dad passed. In his will, he left me the ranch, a decent piece of land on the edge of a new development called Hillside Estates. The ranch had been in our family since the 1940s, long before there were cookie-cutter homes, shiny Teslas, or homeowners associations around here. I thought I'd be left alone to live in peace, like he always had. But peace was not in the cards. Especially not with my older sister Ashley living 3 streets over. Ashley had always resented me. Ever since we were kids, she hated that Dad favored me when it came to the land. I worked with him, fixed fences, fed cattle, and learned how to run the place. She went off to college, married some lawyer, and moved into a white-columned house with a wine fridge and marble countertops. She thought ranching was low class. She once called it playing farmer. When Dad left the property to me and only me, she didn't say much at the reading of the will. Just pursed her lips, nodded, and left early. But her silence had a bite to it. I should have known she wasn't done. The first few months went smooth enough. I cleaned up the barn, repaired the porch, and even started a little organic vegetable garden near the fence line. I got a couple goats and a new horse named Toby. The work was hard, but honest. Quiet. Peaceful. Then the letters started showing up. Bright white envelopes with gold-embossed logos from something called Hillside Estates HOA. They looked official, but always had this fake smiling tone. The first one said my fencing style did not comply with community standards. The second complained that my livestock noises were disturbing to neighborhood tranquility. The third? Unauthorized structures present within shared view easement. I nearly laughed. View easement? I wasn't even part of their neighborhood. I called the number on the letters. A woman named Denise answered. Said she was the HOA president. I explained that my property wasn't part of Hillside Estates. I even offered to email a copy of my deed. She said, "Oh, that's fine, we've already redrawn the jurisdiction lines to reflect our needs. Your property's proximity means you're now included in Phase 3. It's for the betterment of the community." Phase 3. That's what she called it. I told her she had 10 seconds to stop whatever nonsense they were pulling. She chuckled. "You'll want to take that up with the board. But between you and me, it's already in motion." I thought she was bluffing. I didn't believe anyone could just redraw lines and claim part of someone's ranch. I was wrong. 3 weeks before the bulldozers came, I noticed surveyor flags popping up on the far end of my pasture. Neon pink and green, like plastic tumors growing out of the ground. I pulled them out one by one and tossed them in a trash can. Then, the following day, they were back, twice as many. That's when I drove into the HOA office. Small brick building by the clubhouse. Marble floors. Water fountain in the lobby. It all looked too polished for what it really was, a viper nest. I asked for the board, and they told me I needed to schedule a hearing. I asked for Ashley. They said she was in a meeting. I waited 3 hours. She never came out. A week later, I got a letter. A notice of non-compliance with construction mandate. It said my land had been approved for a community access parking structure to serve Hillside Estates overflow. And get this, they were charging me a land usage fee for my own property. I almost lit the letter on fire. I tried everything. County office? They said it was a civil matter. Local sheriff? Said it was disputed land use, and I needed to go through the courts. Meanwhile, construction began. Without permits. Without my signature. Without a single ounce of shame. That was yesterday. And now, as I stood at the edge of my ruined field, cattle pushed into a corner, and machines rumbling like thunder, I realized something terrifying. Ashley hadn't just set this in motion. She was standing across the construction site. Arms folded. Wearing heels and sunglasses. Smiling like she'd just won. I stepped toward her, rage boiling in my chest, when 2 men in suits walked up behind me and handed me a folded document. "You've been served." I stood there, stunned. The paper in my hand felt heavier than it should have, like someone had stuffed bricks inside. It wasn't just a letter. It was a lawsuit. My name in bold at the top, Tyler James Whitman, defendant. Ashley didn't even flinch. She just looked past me like I was a stranger. Like I hadn't sat at the same dinner table with her every Sunday of our childhood. Like I hadn't picked her up when she twisted her ankle in high school or helped pay her college books when Dad wouldn't. And now she was here. Smiling. On the other side of a parking garage. "I told you, Tyler," she called across the concrete. "You should have just sold me the land. Now you've made it complicated." I felt my voice crack with disbelief. "Sold it to you? You tried to lowball me for half its value. You wanted it because you knew Hillside would pay you double." She gave a lazy shrug, like I'd just pointed out the obvious. "You could have had a cut. Instead, you decided to play cowboy." The lawsuit detailed it all. The HOA claimed eminent domain, saying my land was necessary for community infrastructure. They claimed I'd been formally notified, that I'd failed to comply, and that I was now subject to board decisions and assessment penalties. It was garbage. But legal-looking garbage. I knew I couldn't just burn this one. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, watching the moonlight cast long shadows over the ranch. The goats had gone quiet. Even Toby, my horse, paced like he knew something was wrong. Inside the house, the air felt colder than usual. I stared at Dad's old photos above the fireplace, him standing in front of the barn in his cowboy hat, smiling with a busted tooth and eyes full of life. He fought hard to keep this land in our family. Passed it to me because he trusted I'd protect it. And I was losing it. To my own sister. I felt sick. I called a lawyer the next morning, my old friend Jordan Reynolds. We played ball together in high school before he went off to law school in Austin. He listened quietly as I explained everything. Then he let out a slow whistle. "They're bold, man. Real bold. They're betting you can't afford to fight." "I can't," I admitted. "I sunk everything into rebuilding this place. You know that." Jordan was quiet for a beat. "Listen. I've seen stuff like this before. Dirty HOA board pulls shady annexations, and they bank on landowners being too broke or tired to push back. But there's a way to punch back. You just gotta get loud." Loud? Media. County press. Social. Hell, even TikTok if you gotta. Make them look like villains in public. People hate HOA overreach. The thought of airing my family drama online made my stomach churn. But when I pictured that parking garage rising like a tumor over my pasture, when I thought about Ashley's smug face and the smell of fresh concrete pouring over the land I'd grown up on, I realized I didn't care about pride anymore. They'd drawn the first line. I was going to redraw it. I spent the next day gathering every document I had, title deeds, tax receipts, even a picture of Dad holding me in front of the barn as a baby. I scanned them all and uploaded them to a new folder titled, Proof of Theft. Then I made a video. It was just me, standing at the edge of my land. Behind me, the half-finished parking garage loomed like a monument to betrayal. My name is Tyler Whitman, I said. This land's been in my family for 3 generations. I'm not part of Hillside Estates. I never signed anything. I never joined their HOA. And yet, this is what's being built on my property. I turned the camera to the heavy machinery digging into my soil. They claim it's legal. They claim it's necessary. But I never agreed. I never consented. And the woman behind it all? Is my sister. The video went live that night. By morning, it had over 800,000 views. The emails started flooding in. Local reporters. Online creators. People from across the country sending words of support, advice, or just plain outrage. This is theft, one wrote. You gotta expose every one of them. Another sent me screenshots of similar HOA land grabs in Florida and Arizona. But the real surprise? A call from a name I hadn't heard in years. Michelle Danner. She used to live next door when we were kids, always the smartest person in the room. Now she was a real estate attorney in Dallas, and she'd seen the video. I know this HOA, she said. I've fought them before. They play dirty, but they make mistakes. If what you're saying is true, Tyler, we can bury them. I told her I didn't have the money. I didn't ask for money, she said. I asked if you were ready to fight. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. But that hope didn't last long. 2 nights later, someone cut the fence around my pasture. I woke up to Toby missing. 2 goats gone. Tire tracks led out the back road into the hills. There was no note. No warning. Just silence. Someone wanted to remind me that this wasn't just a legal battle anymore. They wanted me scared. Alone. But I'd grown up on this land. And they were about to find out that I wasn't going anywhere. As I followed the tire tracks into the hills with a flashlight and a rifle slung over my shoulder, I spotted something glinting in the moonlight, Ashley's necklace. Torn. Lying in the dirt. The moon was high, casting that eerie silver glow over the hills, when I saw it, half buried in the dry Texas dust, just beyond a patch of broken brush. A gold necklace. Ashley's. I'd recognize it anywhere. She wore it at every family event. Thin chain, single sapphire. Dad gave it to her on her 18th birthday. She'd cried like a child when she opened the box. Now it was torn, the clasp snapped clean in half, the chain tangled like it had been yanked off in a fight. I knelt slowly, picking it up, careful not to breathe too loud. The ground around me was flattened, trampled. Footprints. Boot tracks. Tire ruts leading deeper into the hills. I should have turned back. Called someone. Waited for daylight. But I didn't. Because something was wrong. Not just with the garage. Not just with the HOA. With Ashley. And suddenly, I wasn't so sure she was still calling the shots. I wasn't sure she was safe. I moved quick but quiet, following the tire tracks through mesquite thickets and thorny brush. The wind had died down, and everything felt too still, like the land itself was holding its breath. My flashlight beam bounced along the dirt until it caught the shimmer of something metal ahead. A black SUV. Abandoned. Parked half off the path, engine still warm when I touched the hood. I circled it slow, my hand tightening around the grip of the rifle. Inside? No Ashley. No keys. Just a phone on the passenger seat. Cracked. Unlocked. And on the screen? A text conversation with someone named D. D, we said no media. You crossed a line. Ashley asterisk it wasn't me, I swear. It was Tyler. D asterisk you clean this up or we will. Final warning. My heart dropped into my stomach. This wasn't just about property. This wasn't Ashley's petty revenge anymore. She was in over her head. Back at the ranch, I paced for hours. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't think straight. I kept replaying the message, you clean this up or we will. Clean what up? What did she get herself into? That morning, I drove to the HOA office again. I didn't ask for Ashley this time. I asked for Denise, the woman from the phone, the supposed president of Hillside Estates. She wasn't expecting me. She was in the middle of a board meeting when I burst through the glass doors, eyes bloodshot, dust still on my boots. You know where my sister is? I asked flat out. She blinked. Excuse me? Ashley. She's not answering calls. Her SUV's abandoned in the hills. You've got 30 seconds before I call the sheriff. Her face twitched, but only for a second. She's unavailable, Denise said, standing to block the door. But I assure you, everything is under control. I stepped closer. Then explain this. I tossed the cracked phone on the conference table. The screen lit up to the same text thread. Denise stared at it for half a second too long. Then smiled. This doesn't concern you, Mr. Whitman. In fact, I suggest you stop interfering. Before you become a liability. That word. Liability. It hit like a gunshot. Because now they weren't hiding it. They weren't even pretending this was about HOA policy anymore. I drove straight to the sheriff's department next, and that's when things got worse. The deputy at the front desk looked up my report, then squinted at the computer. Huh. That's strange. What is? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. Your sister filed a restraining order against you. Last night. Says you threatened her. Showed up with a weapon. Claims you're unstable. I stared at the screen, barely able to breathe. That's not true. I found her necklace in the hills, her SUV was abandoned, she's missing. I was trying to help her. He just frowned. Well, I suggest you lawyer up, sir. If she's pressing charges, we can't have you near her or the HOA property. That's when I knew I was being framed. And someone was making Ashley disappear on purpose. Back home, Michelle called me. She sounded tense. Tyler, we've got a bigger problem. I did some digging. Hillside Estates isn't just a housing community. It's a shell corporation, one of dozens owned by a private development group based out of Nevada. Every HOA board member? They're listed as employees on a real estate trust. Including Denise. I swallowed hard. So it's a front. Yeah. And they've been using HOA policy to force rural landowners into sales, then flipping the properties to build commercial infrastructure. My head started spinning. They did it in Arizona, California, Utah. Always the same pattern, letters, fake votes, pressure campaigns. When owners push back, they vanish into lawsuits. Or worse. And Ashley? She's probably the only one who had direct access to your deed history. They needed her. But if she got cold feet and tried to back out? Michelle didn't have to finish that sentence. We both knew what "clean this up" really meant. That night, I didn't post a video. I didn't call anyone. I loaded the rifle, threw a flashlight in the truck, and went back into the hills. Because if Ashley was still alive, I was going to find her. And if she wasn't? Then someone was going to pay. I followed the tracks deeper this time. Past where the SUV had been. The terrain got rough, dry creek beds, jagged rocks, no cell service. Then I spotted something strange in the distance, an old storage shed, half collapsed, hidden behind a grove of cedar. I crept toward it. And inside, I saw a light. Flickering. Someone was there. I raised the rifle, heart thundering in my ears, and pushed the door open. Ashley. Tied to a chair. Bruised. Gagged. Eyes wide with fear. And behind her? A man I'd never seen before. But I recognized the logo on his jacket. Hillside Development Group. The man turned, raised a silenced pistol, and said calmly, "You were warned, Mr. Whitman." The man raised the pistol with surgical calm, like he'd done this before. Not rushed. Not scared. Like this was just another job. I froze. My hands clenched the rifle tighter, breath held tight in my chest. Ashley's muffled cries cut through the silence, desperate, terrified, eyes locked on mine. Her ankles were bleeding from the rope, her face pale and streaked with tears. "Put it down," he said, stepping forward. "This doesn't have to get worse." I didn't move. My thumb found the safety on the rifle and clicked it off. "I'm going to count to 3, he said, voice still like ice water. "Then I bury you right next to her." 1. The moment stretched thin. I could hear every heartbeat echoing in my ears. My trigger finger twitched, but I waited. If I fired, I had to be sure. 2. Ashley kicked the chair just enough for it to tip, and the man turned his head for half a second. That's all I needed. I fired. The shot cracked like thunder in the tight space, deafening. He dropped before he could finish the count. His pistol skidded across the floor. I rushed to Ashley, heart still hammering, hands shaking so hard I could barely untie the ropes. She was sobbing now, trying to speak through the gag. I pulled it down gently. "They were going to kill me," she whispered. "Tyler, I didn't know it would go this far." "I know," I said, wrapping her in my arms. "I swear, her voice broke, I just wanted the money. I didn't know they'd come after you." We made it back to the ranch by dawn. Ashley curled up on the couch like a broken shell, sipping warm tea and staring blankly at the wall. She hadn't spoken more than a few words since the shed. Every time she closed her eyes, she flinched. I called Michelle. Told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "We need to go public, right now," she said. "You've got a criminal conspiracy, false land acquisition, attempted murder. It's all there. I'll handle the legal side. You handle the firestorm." That day, I posted one final video. This time, I didn't hold back. I showed the shed. The bruises on Ashley's wrists. I showed the documents, deed maps, fake HOA votes, the texts from D. Then I dropped the biggest bombshell. "Hillside Estates isn't a neighborhood," I said, staring into the lens. "It's a land theft machine. And they almost got away with it. Almost." I paused. "And to the people who tried to scare me into silence, you're gonna wish you built that garage on someone else's land. It went nuclear in hours. National news picked it up. Talk shows. Podcasts. HOA horror stories trended across the country. I became the ranch guy online. But more importantly, The county launched a full investigation. Property lines were redrawn. Permits revoked. And hillside estates? Dissolved. Turns out Denise had been funneling HOA funds through shell companies for years. The man in the shed? A hired enforcer with a record in 3 states. When the cops searched his car, they found burner phones, fake IDs, and a briefcase full of cash. Ashley cooperated fully with the feds. In exchange for immunity, she testified against the entire board. And me? I got my land back. Every inch. It took months to rebuild. To clear out the mess, level the ground, fix the fencing. But every morning, when I walked the pasture with Toby trailing behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Real peace. Ashley moved to a small apartment in the next county. We don't talk much, but she sends letters. Simple ones. Apologies. Regrets. She's trying. I don't know if we'll ever be what we were. But I know she's alive. And free. That's more than I expected. The ranch is quiet again. The goats are back. The barn's been repainted. I even reopened the vegetable garden. But every time I see concrete, parking garages, polished sidewalks, HOA signs, I remember how close I came to losing everything. And how far I went to protect it. Because when someone tries to draw a line through your life, sometimes the only answer is to grab a rifle and draw your own. This land wasn't just dirt and fences. It was home. And they'll never take it from me again.